What's up, guys? Back here at RFG. Gonna get working on the truck today again. Since the last video, we actually did some work and it never really got filmed. We were just kind of taking a camera day off. Basically, I got all this done, all this together, put the shocks in, ran the air lines, ran the wiring, put the gas tank back in. So all that stuff's done. I ran the wires for the air ride pressure switch all into the cab. So I'm pretty much ready to start figuring out a drive shaft, get the box back on. And what I'm doing for the battery is I have this old cooler. It's an old thermos cooler. And I'm gonna put the battery in there, is the plan. Mount that in the back of the box, kind of like right around here, right at the front of the box. It's gonna be right in the middle. So it'll pretty much just look like the cooler, but the battery will be in there. And then also I can put like rags and wheel cleaner and whatever else in there, just like an extra little storage. I'll figure a way to lock it down somehow. Turbo 350 for the shit horse, we got put back together. Like I said, we weren't doing any filming that day, but it's pretty straightforward. We didn't rebuild anything. We just went through it. There was a couple suspect parts we changed out. There was that one broken seal in the reverse piston. So I had another piston here, so we just changed it out. That's back at the shit horse so that we can get the engine in. And then Mike got some painting done, clean up on the engine here. This is his custom paint scheme, as you can see. And the only thing we still have to do is this oil pan welding. If you guys know from the previous video where I cut and welded mine, or Clayton cut it and then I welded it, it didn't turn out as good as I hoped. It was kind of a real pain. So I'm kind of like concerned about doing this one. So we've been trying to like clean it up really good. I'm gonna bake it in a barbecue, get it hot and get all the contaminants hopefully out of it, and then try welding it. But if it really doesn't weld good, we do have another stock oil pan we'll just throw back on. I mean, that car, it fit, it just over speed bumps and stuff, occasionally it would rub the ground, which isn't the best thing. But first, we're gonna start on the truck today, doing some wiring behind the seat there, those relays. I have to hook up the wires from the compressors, pressure switch. So yeah, let's get to it. If you remember from the last video where I was working on this, these are the relays. One is for the electric fan that goes for the transmission cooler. One is for the switch box power. These two are for the compressors. And so these are the two wires that come out. So I have one wire here, which I have to make a bit longer. And I just have to connect those to there. And then these two here are for the switch that turns the compressors on, the pressure switch. But I kind of wired this wrong because I need it to go through the relay, like it's what turns the relay on. So I have one of the wires that runs this way. I'm gonna have to cut it and then join these two between it because this completes the circuit. So yeah, I'm gonna do that now. That's all done, and then these wires that are sticking out here are they're for the switch box, which I can't hook up until I have power. So to make sure which switch is which. So I'll have to do that after, but all the compressors and all that stuff is all hooked up now, so that's done. Next thing to do is the drive shaft, and then put the box on, and then put the battery box in, and just waiting on those injectors, and this thing will be ready to fire up. So probably the next thing that I'm gonna do with the truck is try to figure the drive shaft out. So I'm gonna have to jack it up and figure out the length of the drive shaft. I actually have the original drive shaft that I got out of the van. It's right there. It's a big aluminum, like 4-inch aluminum drive shaft. So I don't know if it'll fit in there. I don't know if clearance for a drive shaft that big, but I could put that one and then cut it down, you know, cut the amount I need out and then weld it back together. Or I might even use that just kind of as a mock-up drive shaft to figure out my length, and then head to the junkyard, try to find one at the junkyard. And if there's no luck finding one at the junkyard, I'll have to just try to get one made either from somewhere or locally. There's a couple places here that make them. So yeah, that's kind of the next thing we got to do. Another thing that I forgot to tell you guys about that I did on the weekend is to hook the brake line from the Explorer to the metal brake line from the S10. So any 8.8 swap into an S10 like this, there's an adapter fitting that you need. and I found it on a forum, so I'll tell you guys what it is. The part number is, it's a Weatherhead 7828, and it is a 3/8 24 to 7/16 24 fitting. I'll show you what it looks like here. It's hard to see the one on the truck, but it looks like that. It's just a brass fitting that adapts the line, because the line is bigger than the rubber hose. So I picked that up from Napa. It was like $5. So that's something you'll definitely need if you're doing an 8.8 swap, probably into any, even a G body or whatever, all, because most GMs with, especially with drum brakes, will have like the 1/4 inch brake line, the bigger brake line, and then 3/16 is the smaller brake line. So that's the adapter that you need. So I just thought I would tell you guys about that. Speaking of the brake lines, I also forgot, I guess, that actually the next thing I want to do, aside from, I want to measure the drive shaft because I'd like to figure that out. The other thing I have to do is bleed the brakes. So now that I have the all the lines hooked up and everything, what I need to do is I need to pull the master cylinder off, and that's, the master cylinder is out of a like a 99 Blazer with 4-wheel disc brakes already, so it should be the right proportioning and all that for a 4-wheel disc setup. I need to pull it off. It's pretty gunky inside. I need to clean it, and I need to bench bleed it and then put it back on and then bleed the brakes, which I can't do right now because there's no one here to help me, but maybe I'll pull the master off and at least clean it out inside, because it's got like a lot of dirt and gunk. So I'd like to clean that before I bench bleed it. So I'll probably do that now. Okay, so there's the master cylinder off. And if you can see inside, pretty black in there. So I'm going to clean it out with some brake clean and get it ready to bleed it. What I ended up doing is I took this off. There's just 2 pins right here. Knocked those out with a punch, and once I got almost all the way through, I just used a pick. So then once you get that off, you just pop this off. So I was able to clean in here, which was really gross, and clean this up with brake clean, so it's nice. And then take a look. Ooh, wrong side. Take a look in there now. Nice and clean. You can see everything in there now. What I did is I sprayed a bunch of brake cleaner in there, swished it around, pushed a rag in there with a screwdriver, cleaned around, and then once I couldn't get any more, I just sprayed some brake clean in there, let it soak for a bit, and then I filled it with water. I put the lid on like this, and then I filled it with water and then held my fingers over here and just shook it a bunch, and it came out really clean. Looks like brand new almost now. So then I blew it out with air really good, and then this just goes back on here, put the pins back in, and we're good to go. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it back together, but I'm going to leave it for tonight and let it dry good before I put fluid in, and then I'll bleed it tomorrow and put it on, and hopefully maybe someone's around can help me bleed the brakes, and then we'll get the brakes bled, and hopefully they work good and everything, and then that's one less thing we got to do. All right, so it's the next day now. I got the master cylinder in the vise. I filled it up with fluid. You can see it's the fluid. I got a giant thing of fluid. It was only like 20 bucks. So then basically once you get it filled with fluid, all you got to do is pump it and look for bubbles. I already pumped it a few times. Pretty sure that because it wasn't a new master cylinder, it didn't really need a bunch of bleeding. There's no air bubbles. The way I'm doing it is plugging the lines on the end. You can also do it with these hoses and run it through that way, but this one side that I had didn't fit, so I ended up doing it this way. You can do it either way. So it looks like it should be good now, so we'll put it back on the truck. So I got the master back on. There it is. It actually looks pretty nice, all cleaned up. Pretty much looks brand new. So it's all on and full of fluid. What I'm doing right now is I actually pulled the thermostat housing off. So those who have been following the videos know that I don't have a heater in here right now, and I just have the holes, those 2 tubes coming out of the water pump. I have them blocked, which a lot of guys say not to do, and some guys say do it. It might overheat, it won't overheat. What they say is that behind the thermostat housing, there's, I can show you because I just took the thermostat out. So you got your regular thermostat, like a normal old school Chevy, but then you got this disc right here. This disc closes off like the bypass where the hoses go connect together, the two heater hoses. So what they say you can do if you have them blocked off is to drill a couple small holes in here, which will allow any air would get trapped back there to get out. So I'm gonna try that. I'm gonna drill a couple holes in it. Hopefully that works. Other guys say you can get rid of that whole thermostat and go to like an older style like Chevy thermostat and then plug that hole in the backside with like a frost plug. I don't know if any of those things work. I know on the shit horse we just ran a hose to join the two, but I can't really do that on here. So I'm gonna give this a try, and if I have issues, then I'll try something else. But so I'm just gonna take this thermostat, I'll drill a couple holes, and I'll show you after I drill them what it looks like, and then put it back in. Here's the two holes you can see. So like I said, we'll try it. If it doesn't work good, doesn't work good. I can always get another thermostat and throw it in, and then try something else. If it doesn't work, then hopefully I can figure a way to run a loop out of those two holes. But a lot of guys online said this works, so let's give it a try. All right, so I threw the thermostat back in there. So that's all done. Now Mike is got the S15 here. He's doing some work. He has a little bit of a noise, which we think is a loose flex plate, possibly a missing bolt.
That we heard fly out on the highway.
That we are pretty sure we heard fly out on the highway, yeah. And so
a couple months ago, mind you.
Yeah, so he's under there. So we're gonna investigate that and see what we can find. I'm sure you guys know this truck, but it's 87 S15 with a 5.3. It's the first LS swap that we ever did. Oh. I think I want to turn the truck around so that the front is pointing in, because I also want to put the box on soon. So, which I can't do because Mike's in the way. So, yeah, I don't know. Figure something else to do. I have this drive shaft that I took out of the Savannah van that I got, the 4L80. Of course, I took it because I needed the big yoke. I really think this is like a 4-inch drive shaft. I really think it's too big. I don't know. So basically, it's obviously way too long. So it has a big dent in it also. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut it with the chop saw. As you can see, it's already set up in the chop saw there. I'm going to cut it in the chop saw and use it as a mock-up if nothing else. So I'll cut it, slide it in, and then kind of I can do my measurements and stuff like that. And you know what? If it fits inside the truck and all that stuff, I could cut this part off, you know, along the weld, or just on whatever, one side of the weld, maybe even here, and be able to like fit it back in, because I believe that's how it's welded on. If I cut on this side of the weld, I can probably knock this part off, and then I could actually fit it back together and then re-weld it. But I don't know. I don't know if that's something I want to do or I could do, but if nothing else, it's a fun experiment, and it might help me mock it up, and plus be able to tell if I could run a drive shaft of this diameter, because I'm thinking if I have to go look for one at the junkyard, at least if I do this, I'll know exactly what length I need, what diameter will fit. Yeah, so we're gonna cut this up and we'll see what happens. All right, so that went really good. So here's the piece I cut off. You can see the big dent now. And take a look inside. And so I don't know if you can really see inside how that lower piece is kind of welded in. I was just saying to Mike that anybody who wants to build a 4-inch turbo exhaust out of some really nice thick aluminum, go to the junkyard, get yourself a couple drive shafts, and you could build yourself an exhaust system pretty cheap out of aluminum, because it's really nice and thick. So now I'm going to take this part of the drive shaft. I don't know if I'll be able to get it in there without jacking the truck up, but see if I can put it into the yoke and the transmission, and then see how it fits like under the floor and stuff. I got it in there. Actually, surprisingly, it went in without jacking it up. I don't know. It looks like it might actually fit. Like, my concern is, will it hit the floor, which of course I could massage a bit. Will it hit the cross member when it's all the way laid out, you know, with the drive shaft that big? But you can see I have the drive shaft pulled out like about 1 inch out of the transmission, and it's still way too long, obviously. But I made my first cut long, and then I'll make another cut and see. And then, like I said, with this half, I'm gonna have to cut to get the end off. And then like what I can do too is once I put it together, see the idea is I think if you cut it here, this thing here, it's nice and round. This will slip into that, and as long if you make your cut, even if your cut was off a bit, it should still go on nice and straight. And then weld it, and then I could always take it and get it balanced at a Driveshaft shop too. And then if it's balanced, then it should be all good to go. But I don't know, like I said, I'm gonna cut it, pull it out, cut it again, stick it back in, and see how it fits. And if I can make it work, then I might make it work, and it'll save me $300 or something on buying a drive shaft. So that would be awesome. And I get a big 4-inch aluminum drive shaft, which would be nice too. So I cut it more. Let's see if we can see this. So now, if I put it up there, I actually still have quite a bit of room around everything. So I think this drive shaft could actually work. This is the other half with the yoke part. I've stopped what I was doing so I can show you guys. So what I did is I took a cutoff wheel and I just cut around the weld here. And then now I'll show you, I'm just hitting it, but I kind of stopped because I wanted to show you guys. And there you go. So you see how there's a nice lip around there, because that's what they do, is pretty much where it's welded, that's all smaller diameter. So I could actually take a flap disc and grind this down even more. And then you have your squared off end of the tubing. And then you just bang that in, square it up, and then weld it. And of course, I guess you want to make sure that your yoke is straight with the other yoke. So I think what I'll do, if I end up that I'm going to use it, is I'll take a flap wheel and I'll grind some of this weld down, at least half of it, so that it'll slide on even further than just this much, and then weld it back on. So this could actually work, and that would be pretty awesome. I mean, the only thing is if you're doing this yourself, it's aluminum, so you need someone to weld it if you don't have a welder that can weld aluminum. But if you did all this work yourself and got it all ready and just took it to someone, should be not a big deal to weld it. So I'm not going to get anything else done tonight, but I stuck it in there, and actually it looks like it's right now it's pretty much the right length, except you need to give it that inch of space to move in and out. So pretty much I think it's about 1 inch too long, and it almost looks like, I think the U-joint from the stock Savannah van is actually the same as the one for the 8.8, and unfortunately I don't have the end caps. I'll have to buy a new U-joint, which sucks because that one actually looks new, but the end caps are missing. I guess when I got it from the junkyard I never kept them. As far as Mike's truck goes, it's dark out, but one of the torque converter bolts was missing and the other two were loose. So
that's pretty crazy, like, think about it now. We were driving on the highway on the way to Clayton's, and we heard noise, and then we heard zoom, 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 being the bolt probably drug around in there, and then ting, ting, ting. And I was like, that's about normal for this truck.
Yeah, so we got bolts in there, got them all nice and tight, so that should take care of that problem, which is awesome. No more of that noise, hopefully.
Yeah, well, at least 2 years.
Yeah. So yeah, obviously it's getting late, so we'll keep going on this one tomorrow. So yeah, we'll see you tomorrow.